Hey everyone, I'm Nodvaro, and welcome to Too Long Didn't Play, a series where I give you full game recaps of all the games you haven't had time to play, or you just don't want to. On today's episode, we're getting ready for the old country and going back to take a look at Mafia II. Now I know this is becoming a bit of a concerning habit for this channel, where we're covering yet another sequel without looking at the original game, but I'll be damned if I have to play that racing mission again. Mafia II was initially released in 2010, however I decided to play the worst version of the game, which is the definitive edition, which was released in 2020, and boy was that a mistake. This buggy mess makes it more like the definitively shit edition. As per all Too Long Didn't Play episodes, we have a unique counter specific to each game, and for today's count, we'll be using our first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the woman counter, TM, where we'll tally up how many times our main character gets the money, power and women throughout his journey. So with that out the way, Vito, tu vuoi fare l'americano? Let's see how that works out for him. Welcome to Too Long Didn't Play. We start with the panning shot of Empire Bay, the home city of this game, and we meet our protagonist Vito Scaletta, who's sitting in the dark like a vampire whilst having a cigarette. He catches us up to speed on his life as he looks through family photos, where he introduces us to his parents and his sister Francesca before they move to America from their hometown of Sicily. We flash back to 1932, where a 7-year-old Vito moves to America with his family. They arrive in Empire Bay, and the game does a really great job here of setting up the city as Vito sees it for the first time, even getting a glance at the Hogwarts Express. The glamour of the city is taken from Vito though, when we cut to the neighbourhood where he'll be living in. We see this guy who looks very important and our filthy house, and we also see Vito's character model in full, which just looks kind of weird to me. Vito was eventually sent to school to learn English, and we flash forward where we meet his best friend Joe Barbaro as they are breaking into a store. They get spotted by a police officer and chased, where they run down an alleyway to escape. Joe makes it over a fence, but Vito, climbing over with no urgency at all, gets caught. Vito gets arrested and opts to join the army to avoid jail time, and is sent to his old home of Sicily to assist with an invasion during World War II. Our game begins with Chapter 1 in Sicily, 1943. Vito was a part of Operation Husky, where the operation went wrong and he got stuck behind enemy lines. He mentions if not for the local resistance that he would have been killed, so he elects to help the townsfolk when officers begin harassing them. As the officers look to execute this guy, now's a good time for Vito to learn how to aim. We take out some soldiers on the footsteps of this building, and as we approach, we nearly get mowed down by a gun. We enter the building and clear out a bunch of hostiles whilst having perfect grenade lobbing aim, which absolutely barbecues these soldiers. We shoot this coward running away from us and then save some hostages. Oh, no we don't. We continue our fight through the building, which seems to be doing a great job at turning the tides in our favour. Oh no, they have a tank. The tank completely destroys us, and when we come to, we're about to be executed by this soldier when we're saved by this old guy named Don Carlo, head of the Sicilian mob, who's using a megaphone. Don Carlo uses his old man wisdom to make the Italians surrender and finishes Chapter 1 for us. This moves us on to Chapter 2, which often comes after Chapter 1, set 2 years later on February 8th, 1945. We arrive back in Empire Bay on the Polar Express, and Vito tells us how he was shot during the war and medically discharged back home for a short period of time. Joe meets us at the train station and invites us for a beer. We jump in his car and the gameplay begins as we drive to a bar nearby. During the drive, we learn Vito's father had passed away prior to Vito going to the war, and then we move the conversation along and mention how Don Carlo saved us in Sicily, and Joe says he knows a guy like that in Empire Bay. I wonder if that's going to come up later. We get to the bar and have a drink with Joe, where we tell him after we recover we have to return to the war. He doesn't like that so much, so he tells us to wait there while he makes a phone call. And holy cow, Vito's got game. We're about 30 minutes into this game and this woman at the bar is giving him the R-rated eyes in a PG-rated video. Now nothing comes of this, but Vito has been back for all of an hour and is already getting these looks, so I'm adding a score to our counter under the then you get the woman count. After Vito's done eye-f***ing her, Joe returns to the table and tells Vito he called in a favour and got him out of the service. They celebrate that and Vito leaves to go home. We arrive and get slogged $2.25 for this taxi, which shows Vito why he should have called an Uber. And before heading home, we head into Stella's diner, where we forget how civilised society works, immediately walking behind the counter and then leaving. On our next stop procrastinating going home, we head to Dipton Apparel, where we realise how broke we are, which for a series first, puts one of our counters into the negatives for the shame of not having the money. Now that we feel bad about ourselves, we head to our mum's apartment. On the way up the stairs, this cat gives us shit and then gets what it deserves. and then we arrive. When we arrive at Mum's, we get a big kiss from her. We head inside and like any true Italian family, immediately get given food and eat this disgusting looking soup with Mum and Francesca. After dinner, we head to our bedroom, which is just like we left it. The next day we wake up and Vito doesn't like his bedroom so much, so he gets dressed in his iconic leather jacket and he leaves. We speak to Mum in the kitchen and tell her Joe got us out of returning to the war. She expresses her disapproval of Joe as a friend and makes us promise to go meet a man named Derek Pappalardo who can give us honest work at the docks just like our father. We promise Mum to her face that we'll go visit him, but then immediately ignore that as we leave the apartment to go hang out with Joe. As we head outside, we see Francesca being hassled by a loan shark's hide muscle. Vito doesn't like that, so he beats him up. After we win the fight, we speak to Francesca, who tells us our family owes the loan shark $2,000 due to a debt created by her father. Now note this, it comes up later. As we listen to them talk, us the player are very lucky that Vito has the shining as we can hear his thoughts.
I gotta get my hands on $2,000 fast. I bet Joe could help me out.
After leaving, we start running to Joe's and get hit by this truck before arriving at his apartment. Before we enter, we see this police officer walking near us. We go to seek retribution for the start of the game, but immediately regret it, so we start running away. We eventually give in, but because we're too broke to pay, we get executed. Vito reincarnates and learns his lesson, so we arrive back at Joe's and we go in. We enter Joe's apartment block, and Joe's very happy to see us, but more happy to see this lady in the hallway. We enter his apartment and see Joe was having a party. As one of the women leave, they give Vito a flirtatious look, but I'm not going to add that to the count. After the girls leave, Joe and Vito get talking, and we tell Joe we need money. Joe says he can sort us out as he knows a guy who pays well for risky jobs. We're interested, so we keep listening, and the time it took me to say this sentence, Joe breaks a world record for getting dressed and is ready to go. Joe tells us we need to head to a friend of his named Giuseppe to get Vito's discharge papers. We leave Joe's apartment and follow him to the garage. We convince him we know how to drive, so he lets us take the wheel behind his vehicle, which I'm sure he immediately regrets. After crashing his car, we have to avoid this guy that tries running in front of us before driving to Giuseppe's while following the road rules. That gets boring as shit, so we floor it and then begin to drive like a madman when we eventually arrive at Giuseppe's and get out of the car. As we exit the car, Joe and Vito notice another one that they might want to steal later. Now before entering Giuseppe's, Vito decides to play football with a bin and then celebrate with Joe. After playing football, we finally enter Giuseppe's store, who's introduced as the best safecracker in Empire Bay. He gets us our discharge papers and Joe pays him a wad of cash. We pick up the papers and ask for a set of lockpicks so we can steal the car from outside, and Joe the Stinge makes us pay. Once we have them, we test out our lockpicking skills in a much better, more intuitive version of lockpicking than Oblivion. We head outside and with our newfound lockpicking skills, we walk up to the car and decide to smash the window in anyway. Police immediately hear that and then a chase ensues. The chase is over before it begins and the police give up immediately. Because our vehicle is now wanted, we have to go to the body shop to change plates. Just as we arrive at the body shop, this police officer absolutely T-bones us. One ridiculous comedic chase ensues and we go hide around this corner as Joe just stands in plain sight and we're able to escape. Vito returns to the scene of the crime and we steal the police officer's car before doing a blocky that I suppose wipes the officer's memory, leaving our car free to fix with our bare hands. We jump back into our destroyed vehicle and head to the body shop. After arriving, I promote my channel by changing the plate and then we leave, where Joe tells us we have to head to Mike Brewski's Scrap and Salvage. On the way there, we get to hear why Joe is so good with the ladies.
Oh, this one never fails. Hey, baby, that's a nice outfit. It'll look good crumpled up at the foot of my bed in the morning.
And this works for you.
After listening to that for a bit, we arrive at Mike's and we learn he operates a car stealing business. We get given the task to go steal a specific car at the Lone Star bar across town, and if we can bring that back without bringing the cops, we'll get paid. However, given our history with police, don't like our odds. We haggle Mike up to $400 and head out when Joe gives us a gun. We immediately show our poor barrel discipline and then point it at Joe's face. We practice some shooting on an old car and see it fires explosives, and with our newfound gun of ultimate power, we jump in a truck with Joe and head off. On the way to the Lone Star, this woman backsteps into our car. Now that's the second person who's jumped in front of our car since starting this game. After not killing anyone, we arrive at the Lone Star bar and see our target vehicle we need to steal. Joe immediately bails on us and we're left on our own to do it. Because Vito has the subtlety of a sledgehammer, he kicks his way into the bar and tries to intimidate people. It's ineffective. We're upset by that, so we kick our way through 2 more doors and immediately get thwarted by this guy who tries beating us up. Vito finally knocks him out and politely closes the door behind him. Because Vito decided to make as much noise as possible to get here, he's immediately caught and shot at as he steals the car. Luckily he makes a great escape from the group, which we later find to be called the Bombers, and we return the car to Mike. Mike inspects the car, and luckily he must be legally blind because he's satisfied and gives us our money. Joe takes his cut and we get to add to our tally on the first you get the money counter. After that, we drive back to Joe's house. Now, I forgot what Vito did during this drive to become wanted, but I'm lucky we arrive at our waypoint as it makes the police disappear. Joe and Vito head inside, and Joe is kind enough to offer us some food and drinks from his fridge. We take advantage of his kindness and completely clear him out before heading to bed on Joe's kitchen couch, taking us to chapter 3. It's February 10th and we wake up on Joe's couch to the phone ringing. We answer the phone and it's our mum who's confirming we're going to go see Derek Pappalardo for work today. Vito leaves the apartment and jumps in his car, which is still wanted by police. We head to the body shop and buy a new plate before continuing our journey. On the way, we drag race his taxi and have this police car try to cut us off. A short time later, we arrive at the city port and enter into Derek's office. In stereotypical mobster fashion, he's eating a steak. We have a chat with Derek and his bodyguard Steve and ask for a job which he agrees to. We follow Steve downstairs and are given a mind-numbing task to stack these crates into a truck. Because this is boring and would make awful gameplay, Vito gives up immediately after stacking 2 crates and tries to leave. As he's walking out, Vito's lucky he says everything he thinks unless he's using The Shining to talk to us and mentions he'd make more money working with Joe Barbaro. Steve overhears him and says that he recognises his name, so he asks Vito to follow him upstairs back to Derek's office. Vito follows Steve back to Derek's office where we interrupt him as he tries getting through that steak. We speak to Derek, who tells us Joe is to thank for his job, but he is hesitant to believe that we actually know him. He reaches in his drawer to get his phone out, but he accidentally pulls a gun on us. He finally figures out what a phone is and calls Joe, who vouches for us. Because we can now be trusted, Derek gives us a job to go collect some money from the dock workers. We go and collect the money and the first 2 go off without a hitch. But as per the video game rule of thirds, the third guy gives us a bit of trouble, so we have to knock him out and then get paid. This pisses off this giant of a dock worker who makes us look like a dwarf. Oh wait, no, he was just standing on something. And then we need to show him what's what to assert our dominance. After kicking ass and chewing bubblegum, we're all out of kicking ass, so we return to Derek, who pays us 100 of the best. Derek tells us Joe called him while we were fighting his dock workers and to meet him at a bar called Freddy's in Little Italy. Once we arrive, Vito heads upstairs and meets Joe, who's having a beer. He says he's introducing us to someone who has a big job for us, and enter stage right, a new character appears. Vito gets introduced to one of Joe's friends called Henry Tomasino, and without spoiling too much later on down the line, don't get too attached to this guy, or you're seriously gonna regret it. Henry tells us we have to steal some gas stamps from a federal agency called the Office of Price Administration. Because no one wants to do any hard work anymore, Vito has to do it alone. Before we go and do that, we need to go see a woman named Maria, who works at the agency, who will tell us how to get in. We jump back into our trusty truck and head to Maria's, where we continue our trend of overly aggressive entrances and kick the door in. We meet Maria and tell her about our task, and she scams a free ride out of us to a nearby hospital to visit her sister. We agree to drive her, but it makes us so mad that we need to kick another door open. Vito heads to our car and we have to wait for Maria patiently, who's showing absolutely no urgency for this task at hand. On the way there, Maria tells us the back door will be open, and the keys to the safe where the stamps are kept in are in the director's office upstairs. We drop Maria at the Empire General Hospital and head to the Office of Price Administration. Once we're there, we jump a fence to get in and we enter via an open window around the back. We have to be sneaky in this scene. I'm very sneaky, sir. I fear you are underestimating my sneakiness. Absolutely no one's underestimating Vito's sneakiness, as he is immediately spotted by a guard, which he has to knock out. We grab the key from the director's office and then start searching for the safe. We enter a bathroom where there's no one else here. You must be talking to me. Before continuing our search, we finally find the safe in a back room and we're able to unlock it and steal the gas stamps. The police arrive a short time later, but we are able to jump off this roof and escape the way we came in. We jump back in our trusty truck and escape with sheer arrogance, driving right past the police. We head back to Freddy's bar and jump out the truck. Vito decides he wants to climb over this truck before he heads inside. Vito heads straight upstairs and we interrupt Henry, who's now eating a steak. And now when I was writing my notes for this script, the counter was initially going to be interrupt someone while eating a steak, but I decided against it because there's a severe lack of steak eating in the second half of this game. We give Henry the gas stamps, but he tells us that they're expiring tomorrow. He says the only way we'll get paid for this job now is if we sell them at local gas stations before midnight. So now we're on a timer and we have to sell 6 of these gas stamps all around town. It's lucky I bought this slow as shit truck. We kick our way into the first gas station, try punch our way into the second before kicking it, kick the third, get hit by a bus on the way to the fourth, and at the fifth we have to fill up on fuel, which takes a ridiculously long amount of time. Now after that entire debacle, we're finally about to make it to the 6th one in the nick of time when this guy decides to cut us off and ruins the whole thing. As failures, we return to Joe's, but not before pulling off a Dukes of Hazzard and getting an achievement for it. Now that we feel like a winner again, we head back into Joe's apartment and go to sleep on our depressing bed. Vito dreams us into chapter 4, where we wake up the next day and power stance in our underwear while staring out the window. We read a note that Joe wrote for us that tells us to meet him at Freddy's bar with some lockpicks and a gun. We get dressed into our leather jacket and repair our car before heading to Freddy's. Once we arrive, Vito's OCD takes over and he jumps over the car again before heading in the front door. We enter and see Joe and Henry talk, talking, but as they talk, we overhear Walt Disney on the phone. He starts yelling at someone, talking about money before hanging up and giving us the go ahead. We ask Henry who he was, and he tells us we don't need to know that right now, so I'm going to continue to call this guy Walt Disney until we find out. Henry gives us a job to go rob a jewelry store, which Joe and him seriously undersell how difficult that's going to be. Supposedly it's in a shopping mall which has no security, and all we need to do is pick a lock to get in. We agree to do it, and we skip to 6 hours later, where we're now wearing our telephone service disguises. We arrive at the jewelry store and we pick the lock to get in. Maybe they were right, maybe this is simple. No, of course it's not, it's a mafia game. As Vito and Joe are robbing the place, a car crashes through the front window. And now we got the start of a good joke. An Italian and an Irishman walk into a jewelry store and point guns at each other. We find out the lead Irishman's name is Brian O'Neill, as we have a Mexican standoff with him. We see that police have caught wind of the robbery and they decide to show up. Now this cutscene ends with a weird abrupt cut to black, which I thought was just part of the game till I realised it was a bug, and it doesn't get fixed until chapter 7, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. We shoot our way through the shopping centre and follow Joe up some stairs to the rooftop. Before we can escape, police come up chasing us, and this one slips on the ice. What an idiot! We continue our shootout before we decide to shimmy our way to escape across the roof of the arcade. We make it to the other side and the police realise they don't get paid enough to do this, so they let us go. We continue our escape and make it down a fire escape where we see Brian O'Neill and his gang getting arrested. We hide down the alleyway for a bit and hand the bag to Joe and get paid our $1,000 reward, adding another number to our money counter. We finally make it back to Joe's, and just as we peacefully try to enter the building, we turn around and see this police officer trying to run us over. We take matters into our own hands, and after that we threaten the only witness before heading inside. Now that we're inside and have calmed down from threatening an innocent man, we go to sleep. Vito dreams us into another chapter change. It's now February 20th when we wake up to find a half-naked woman inside. She flirts with Vito enough to add another count to our counter. And then we get dressed and head out for the day, where we plan to meet Joe for lunch at Freddy's. As we head outside, we witness some road rage occurring between the half-naked woman who's now clothed and a random guy. The guy gets a bit too physical, so we decide to step in. We beat the guy up, and the damsel in distress offers us sex, a euphemism piece of pie. Vito's too full, so instead of the pie he takes $50 instead. Now I can only imagine Vito decided to take this offer because he must know the chronology of our counter. First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the woman. After that, Vito steals the angry bloke's car and drives around him to head to lunch. We arrive at Freddy's and enter the building, when lo and behold we join Joe, Henry and Walt Disney, who's now introduced as Luca Guarino, who are all eating steak. So Luca, congratulates Vito and Joe on their robbery. So he offers us a job to take someone out, and I'm not talking about the dinner. Luca tells us if we complete this job we'll be accepted into the family, which I assume is the House of Mouse, and then all we have to do is pay him an initiation fee of $5,000. After telling us to go murder someone and finishing his steak, Luca leaves the table, but as he's walking out, he gets stopped by the head of the family, Alberto Clementi, who slaps him in the face. Once that awkward encounter is done, we speak to Henry, who tells us our target is some fat guy across the river. There is a caveat to this though, because the last person who tried to take this guy out was killed trying. Henry tells us he's rented an apartment across the street from where this target's supposed to be, but first he sends us to go to a gun merchant by the name of Harry to get an MG42. We head off to go to the gun merchant, but before we reach him, we want to spend a bit of cash, so we go and buy a new outfit, which is a little bit stereotypical, and then we head to Harry's in Kingston. Once we arrive, we head inside and meet Harry. He's pretty excited to show us his big gun, and Vito gets talking to him about how they're both in the service. They start reminiscing, and my game cuts the scene off with another abrupt black screen that just completely cuts the scene. We carry the box containing the MG42 outside, which makes us fat crawl before loading it up and heading off to Henry's apartment. On the way there, Vito's feeling a little bit hungry, so he stops, kicks a door in, and orders a hot dog from a diner, which he absolutely devours like a speed eater. Joey Chestnut who. We head to the apartment and arrive, where we wait for 2 hours. Henry and Vito are staking out their target when Joe's sleeping in the back. Because we're doing absolutely nothing to try and be subtle at all, a couple of street workers identify us looking dodgy in the window. Our target arrives, and as we get the guns ready, the street workers warn him and it puts us into a shootout. We use the MG42 briefly to blow up a car and kill a few henchmen before chasing the fat man. Once we head downstairs, we continue our shootout for a bit, and because I'm terrible at the game, Vito cops a shotgun to the face. Never mind though, because we have the power of regeneration, we try again, and that guy gets his just desserts. We head upstairs in the elevator and we finally track down the fat man, and I just want to make it clear that this is what the game's calling him. I don't actually know what his name is, and I didn't research it either. Henry intimidates the guy by putting his gun in his mouth and tells him that Don Clementi sends his regards, and then we hear a gunshot. But then in a shock reveal, it turns out the fat man was concealing a gun and has shot Henry Henry. Now remember when I said don't get too attached to Henry before? This isn't why. For shooting Henry, Vito and Joe get their revenge and we finish off our target. As Henry's bleeding out, Joe has to carry him as Vito clears the path of enemies, shooting us out of the building. We escape the burning building and make it to our car. Joe tells us we have to go get to a mob doctor by the name of El Greco, and the game puts us on a timer. As we're speeding there, Vito loses control of the car and gets stuck on these stairs. Now due to the power of editing, let's just say we made it out of there and Henry didn't die bleeding out in the back of the car and we made it till El Greco's on our first try. Lucky for us, once we arrive, El Greco is home and he agrees to take Henry in. As Henry goes in to get treated, he turns and pays Vito his money, letting us add another number to our count. Because we just made 2,000 big ones, we can pay off our father's debt to the loan shark. So Vito heads back into his car and makes his way to his mum's apartment where he meets Francesca at the door. We pay the money back to Francesca and make a promise to her that everything's going to be fine. Because this is a mafia game, of course, we know nothing's going to be fine from this point onwards. To celebrate our debt being cleared, Vito decides to go buy another suit and then partakes in another hot dog eating contest at a local diner. Now that we have a full stomach, we decide to go steal a car in broad daylight as someone watches on, and then we head back to Joe's and we go to sleep. The power of Vito's dreams continues to propel us forward as we hit chapter 6, which is on February 26, 1945. Vito heads outside for the day and the door salesman from Fallout 4 is waiting for him. As Vito tries walking down some stairs, this absolute pig of a man identifies himself as a cop and places Vito under arrest. Unlucky for us, someone leaked our gas stamp fiasco to the police. We cut through a bit of a time jump montage where Vito tells us that Henry hired us a lawyer, but the evidence was too overwhelming. Due to that, this judge sentences us to 10 years in federal prison. We cut to May 18th where Vito and a bus full of new inmates are transported to Hartman Federal Prison. The other inmates look very excited to welcome some new friends. Vito gets out of the bus and another abrupt ending cutscene happens. Now I promise you all now, this is the last time that happens for the rest of the playthrough. We walk into the prison in a lineup and we get jeered on the way through. Vito looks to his left and I swear to God I thought we were being stalked by Michael Myers for a second, because for some reason the Asian character models in this game do not look good at all. All of their faces look like they're wearing the William Shatner mask that they used for Michael Myers in Halloween. We continue our lineup when the inmate in front of us gets cold feet and gets the shit kicked out of him for it. For some reason we then cop the same treatment from the guard and then continue on. We cut through to a good old-fashioned police lineup as Captain Terrence gives us a speech. The camera pans to our lineup and we shouldn't be scared because we're in good company as we're standing next to a Skyrim Wood Elf and John Cena. After listening to the dictator for a bit, we go get our hair cut, which turns Vito into a character from Prison Break. The guard leads us to our cell and this inmate flips us off on our way. Once we jump in our cell, we sit on the bed and contemplate life as the game skips forward 3 days. After 3 days, Vito's mastered his cool guy pose as we stand in the prison yard. Vito narrates to us that Joe had reached out to him and told him to find a guy by the name of Leo Galante in prison. We run around the yard looking for him like a kid that no one wants to play with, as everyone politely tells us to go get fucked. After running around like a headless chicken for a bit, we run into this corner which progresses our game to a cutscene. Brian O'Neill from the jewelry store incident recognizes us and picks a fight. A Leo Galante looking old man watches on, and because we're the protagonists, we fight Brian with no chance of losing. We get the shit kicked out of us and a guard king hits us for our poor effort before dragging us into solitary confinement. After 2 days of licking our wounds, we see Leo Galante come to our cell with one of the guards. He tells us he was impressed by us losing that fight convincingly and that we could be useful to him. We agree to help him, so he gets us out of confinement and introduces us to his merry men of fighters, specifically this huge dude named Pepe. Leo tells us we're now under his protection provided we help him. The first way we help Leo is that Pepe needs a sparring partner, which is a perfect time for Vito to learn the counter-attack. After our fight, we're on our haunches sucking in the big ones. We tell Leo about how Luca tried charging us to enter the family, and Leo mentions that joining a crime family is free and Luca and Alberto Clemente will have to answer to him, but he doesn't elaborate on this. Leo heads off and we go meet some guys around the gym, including everyone's favourite sailor Popeye. After we're done eating spinach, we go to leave the gym, but we're intercepted by Michael Myers and co, otherwise named as Mr. Wu. After a few racial remarks from Leo, we agree to fight one of Mr. Wu's men. And after this guy gets talked up, he immediately turns his back to us as a fight starts, and then we hug him in a warm tender embrace and win the fight. After the game stops bugging out, the game skips to 1 week later. Vito wakes up and is on his way to prison duties when we're stopped and advised that Leo's given us the day off. We meet Leo, who tells us we need to beat up another guy, and after that fight, a guard comes in and tells us we have a visitor. We head to the visitors center and see our sister Frankie, who tells us she's getting married. That's good. Then she tells us our mum's severely ill and not getting better. That's bad. After that, we skip to another week later where Vito's woken up to clean some urinals. After a bit of hard work, we go to take a shower where this no-neck looking freak takes a liking to us. Because Vito doesn't swing that way, he beats him up, which earns him a trip back to solitary confinement. Once we're in our cell, we receive a letter and Vito reads it explaining to us that our mum died. The next day we hit the yard again, where Leo tells us Peppy is being beaten up by Brian O'Neill. We're tasked to head to the gym to enact retribution on O'Neill and interrupt him mid-concentration kill. We beat him in a fight, and because a flawless victory isn't enough, we hit him with a fatality. That gratuitous violence leads us to Leo's penthouse prison suite. It's here Leo teaches us about the 3 crime families of Empire Bay. You have the Clementes, led by Alberto, the Falcones, led by Carlo, and the Vincis, led by Frank. Leo tells us he's leaving prison in a few months, but once he gets out, Alberto's going to be in a world of trouble for charging people to get into his family. Apparently in the lawless underworld, there's still some morals. This brief history of the Mafia leads us to chapter 7, where it's now April 10th, 1951, and Leo's pulled a few strings outside and got him Vito out of prison 4 years early. Once he's out, Vito jumps off this bus and is amazed at how different the world looks. Hubba hubba. The first thing we do is head to Joe's apartment. We catch up with Joe, who tells us he's bought us our own little place. Joe also tells us that we're going to head out tonight to celebrate Vito's release from prison. He gives us a gun and then we head out to see our new apartment. He also gives us $200. We head to Joe's car, where we learn that Joe hasn't seen Henry for a while, and that Joe's been hooked up with the Falcone family since the Clementes tried charging us the $5,000. Before our surprise night, we decide to go visit our new apartment. In true Vito fashion, this immediately turns into a police chase for speeding, which is then upgraded to a charge of murder, but it's all good because we can shake the cops and then arrive at the brand new apartment. Once we arrive, we get a tour of our new place from this random bloke before we kick him out. We then dress in our finest suit and we head to the garage where we can give our new wheels a spin. We arrive at Joe's and oh my god, Vito, what's wrong with your head? Vito looks in the mirror and he doesn't seem to notice that half his head's missing, and because no one else seems to be worried about it, we leave the apartment and are introduced to Joe's friend Eddie Scarpa, whose presence fixes Vito's head. We all head outside to the car, where we're informed that our surprise is a classy cat house. We arrive at the brothel when Vito gets a bit too excited, hitting this fire hydrant before heading inside. While we're in there, we have this very uncomfortable scene where we talk to Eddie for a bit while he's receiving a blowjob. While we're trying to ignore that, Eddie tells us he works for Falcone and wants Vito and Joe to join up. They have a drink to that and we flash forward, where from what I gather, we can add 2 numbers to our then you get the woman count. Eddie starts acting like an intoxicated arsehole and Joe's trying to dance with a woman on stage, so Vito decides it's time to take them home, but not before washing the brothel off him. As we're driving back to Joe's, we smell something and Eddie tells us it's a dead body he has in the trunk that we agree to go bury. Eddie tells us that there's already a hole dug at a nearby observatory, so we head there, but because Eddie's too drunk and Joe has a weak stomach, we're left to get the body out of the boot and bury it. That's what you get for being the designated driver, Vito. We leave and start heading back to Joe's, where we end up in another police chase, which ends in us crashing our car and then having to give in to the police, where they sting us with a $50 fine. I suppose that's a pretty lenient charge when we could have been done for DUI and disposing of a dead body. After this, we drive everyone back to Joe's house and listen to Joe and Eddie blabber on a little bit, which brings us into chapter 8. We're halfway through the game now and it's April 11th, 1951. We're trying to get some sleep when we're woken up by Joe and an old friend of his, Marty, who's throwing things at our window. Now I don't know why, but the sound of my recording fixed itself for this chapter, which is just in time for us to hear Marty's annoying voice.
Sorry, Joey.
We get dressed and head downstairs to meet Joe, where he introduces us to Marty and tells us that we've been delivered a truck for today's job. We jump in the truck and head down to Riverside, where we're tasked to sell some cigarettes to some locals. We start off going pretty well, but then we quickly learn that Vito's colorblind.
1 carton of blues, Vito. Are you deaf or what?
And before anyone mentions it in the comments, I know we get paid for each of these boxes, but it's not enough to add to our money counter. We go to a few hours later where we hear sirens coming towards us. Police arrive and we think we're busted when we learn that the police are actually customers of ours and want a carton of whites. If they were customers and they knew it, I think it's an interesting choice for them to come to this subtle back alley dealing while blaring their sirens, but that's just me. After assisting the police get lung cancer, we jump back into the truck and head to Millville to sell some more cigarettes. Once we arrive in Millville and start selling some cigarettes to customers, the game turns into a cutscene, which I think is an indication that shit's about to go down. A few cars roll up and a bunch of greasers jump out. They don't appreciate us selling cigarettes to locals, so they decide to Molotov our truck. This earns the head greaser a bullet to the face. The rest of the greasers decide to speed off, so we steal the bloke's car we just killed and give chase. Unfortunately, during the chase, the criminals escape, so we head to a nearby phone booth to call Eddie. As we're walking into this phone booth, this NPC who thinks she's the main character beats us to it. We patiently wait for her to finish her call.
Stop that now, lad, will you?
before we head in and call Eddie. Eddie's not happy and he wants his $2,000 back. He tells us he's going to sort it all out with Derek's sidekick Steve, who we met earlier in the game. We get directed to go meet Steve at a bar called the Crazy Horse, so we head there and meet up with him. Unfortunately, when we arrive, we see Marty's there too. Steve tells us the greasers will be at a nearby foundry, but use the Crazy Horse as a hangout spot. He pulls out a few Tommy guns, and in true Mafia fashion, we shoot the place up and then use these Molotov cocktails to burn it down. Now, if that's not power, I don't know what is. After we do that, we all agree to jump back in our cars and head to the foundry. We arrive at the foundry and meet Steve and Co out the front. We knock on the door and Elvis Presley answers. For his hospitality, the king cops a baseball bat to the face, as does this guy. During the confrontation, Mark Pellegrino, aka Lucifer from Supernatural, pulls a gun on Joe, and Marty's quick thinking saves his life. We get into a large shootout in the foundry and end up taking down all the greasers. Once that's done, Steve and Co decide to leave, but because Vito and Joe still owe Eddie $2,000, they think about how they can make that back. We locate a hot rod in the foundry and plan to sell it to Derek. We steal the car and drive it to the port, and because we can't be bothered with a police chase right now, we stop at this red light because a police car is right behind us. After obeying traffic laws, we arrive at the dock and sell the car to Derek for just under $2,000. Because we just sold our only ride, we steal another car and head to the Maltese Falcon to meet Eddie. We arrive at the Maltese Falcon and head inside to meet Joe and Eddie. There's no steak in sight, but there is alcohol and smokes. We hand Eddie his money, have a drink at the bar, and then that's job done. We jump back in our car, which is right where we left it, and then we head back to the apartment and go to sleep. Vito's dreams take us into chapter 9, which is May 6th, where we're woken up by our phone ringing. We answer the phone and it's Joe, who tells us we have a situation and we have to go to the Maltese Falcon and bring a gun. We grab our fastest car and accidentally poleaxe this woman, which gets us into another police chase. Vito tries to earn style points by doing a donut to escape from the police. That's one for the power counter. And then we head to the Maltese Falcon. We arrive at the bar and meet Eddie, who introduces us to Carlo Falcone, head of the Falcone family. He tells us Alberto Clemente and Luca Guarino are planning an attack against the Falcones and leave us with Eddie to give us our new job. He says Carlo's accountant Harvey Beans and his bodyguards Tony Balls and Frankie the Mick, and no, I didn't make these names up, are missing. He tells us to tail Luca Guarino, and if we find out that he has anything to do with a missing accountant, we get to whack him and then save Beans, Balls and Mick. We get into our car and head to Freddy's bar, where we see Luca jump into his car. As we try to follow him, it's very difficult to be subtle when we have a door hanging open like this, but we do our best. Because Luca must be legally blind, a couple of near misses later, we follow him to Clemente's slaughterhouse. We look for a way in and find an entrance to a nearby sewer. After sneaking through the sewer and seeing Master Splinter, we find a ladder. We climb up the ladder into the slaughterhouse compound and do our best to be sneaky, which doesn't help with this dog drawing attention to us.
What, is somebody there? There's nobody there, see? So shut up before we turn you into meatloaf.
He should have listened to the dog. We see Guarino leading our men inside, so we do a bit of parkour and enter the slaughterhouse. We sneak past this guy who's sleeping, and we begin a stealth section, which sees Vito do this filthy crab walk past some pig. After we sneak Vito to a back room, we found our guys, and we find Luca taunting our men and oh my god, what's he done to his face? Oh wait, no, that's just another bug. The torturing hasn't started yet. Vito does an absolute piss poor job at hiding and is immediately seen, so he jumps out at Luca and his cronies and points a gun at him. While we're talking to Luca, we get ambushed by this big dude who punches us in the face. We have to fight him off, and lucky no one else decides to help him so we can put up a good fight. Vito is eventually overpowered and this huge guy goes to kill us with a massive cleaver. Lucky one of the hostages kicks a gun to us where we're able to get the upper hand, but this has given Luca enough time to escape. We get into a shootout and free the hostages. After we escape, in one of the most effective NPC drive-bys I've ever seen, a bunch of Luca's men come out of nowhere and mow me down. We try again and get to the same part with a valuable lesson that we shouldn't have been outside before. We fight off Luca's backup and track him down to a room where he's barricaded himself in. Pony eventually breaks in and throws Luca out. Because Vito's had enough violence for today, he leaves Beans and Balls with Luca and leaves while they take care of him. We jump in our car and head back to the Maltese Falcon to report what happened. After we arrive, we see that everyone's repulsed by our smell. We talk to Eddie, who tells us to go change our clothes but congratulates us on the job. We finish up talking to him and are paid $5,000. Because we've been shamed enough, Vito goes to a nearby clothes store and kicks in the door where he picks out the most expensive outfit to buy. And now that we don't smell like shit, we head back to the Maltese Falcon to meet up with Eddie and Joe. We find out that we're going to be initiated into the Falcone family tonight, but first we have a guest to attend to. We see Leo is here to visit us and we go to have a chat with him. He explains to us that while he works for the Vinci's, he's recommended that we get initiated into the Falcone family so we can stay together with our friend Joe. Joe, Leo and Eddie head upstairs and Vito has to wait outside while Joe gets initiated. This takes a surprisingly long time, and Vito stands up, sits down, stands up, and sits down again before being called in by Eddie. We all stand around this table and Vito gets sworn into the family, with Falcone kissing us on the cheek while looking very cross-eyed. Before the meeting ends, Frank Vinci stands up and delivers a great message for our school children.
Stay away from the dope. No dope.
With this, we're now part of the Mafia, and get ready for this, because we're about to add to our count in a big way, as we go to a montage of Joe and Vito spending large and beating people up, which for simplicity's sake, we're just going to add 10 to our power counter. This montage eventually takes us to chapter 10, which is set on June 15th, 1951, and we wake up in our newly bought house. Once again, we're woken up by a phone call. This time it's Eddie on the other line, and he tells us we need to head straight to Joe's. We get dressed in this ridiculous high school outfit that I assume I unlocked with some sort of DLC, and then we head out. When we arrive at Joe's, we crash into his driveway before getting out of the car and heading upstairs. When we arrive, we see Marty's out the front of his apartment. We ignore him completely and head inside, where Don Falcone is sitting waiting for us. Now I shouldn't have put this outfit on, because Vito looks ridiculous in this scene, as is severely underdressed compared to everyone else. Falcone declares war on the Clementis after Luca kidnapped our men at the slaughterhouse. We find out that Clementi booked a room at the Empire Arms Hotel for a meeting, and luckily Joe has a plan on how to take them out. We discuss that the bomb is only big enough to blow up one room of the hotel, so we need to plant it carefully, and then Joe quotes the name of a YouTube channel that heavily inspired this recap series.
But everybody in a room where it goes off is dead meat.
Joe informs us that the plan is to go in disguised as window cleaners, and then Falcone leaves. We continue to talk to Joe, who tells us Marty's going to be our getaway driver. Vito suggests to him that this is a bad idea, which I'm assuming is indicative that Marty's going to die, and then they wrap up the conversation and head out.
Kind you don't need to know about.
Everything except capiche. Vito, Joe and Marty head to the car and make our way to the hotel. Once we arrive, we head to an underground car park and pull up. We ask Marty to stay in the car with our guns, and then Joe and Vito head inside. Once we find our way inside, we go and get our cleaners uniform disguises, which turn us into the Super Mafia brothers as they come with a free moustache. It takes all of about 5 seconds before our disguises backfire, and this random guard asks us to clean up some mess. As we're cleaning up, we see Henry and a couple henchmen leading a hostage out. Once they leave, we head upstairs and try to find Clementi's meeting room. As soon as we get out of the elevator, another henchman conveniently tells us to go to the meeting room as someone has spilled something on the floor which requires a clean. We head to the meeting room and see someone's accidentally spilled some blood on the carpet. Because we get left alone in the room, Joe plants the bomb under the table as we cut a hole in the window for the wire. Once that's done, a henchman opens the door and is watching us, so we have to clean up the blood. Joe and Vito are surprisingly good at this, and who knows, if this mafia stuff doesn't work out for them, maybe they can start a cleaning business. We head through the hotel and make our way to the roof. Once we get to the rooftop, Joe hands us a gun in case something goes wrong. Something immediately goes wrong and Clementi's men are hanging out on the roof. Vito tries getting past him but gets spotted, so he tries to retreat. Because Joe doesn't play that way, he starts a shootout. We survive the shootout and make our way to a window washing platform. We call the elevator up and give this window washing cleaner an early minute. We tie him up and pick up a Playboy magazine that we didn't realize were collectibles until now in this game. After seeing that, Vito stands still for about 5 minutes, and after that he returns and gets on the elevator shaft. We lower ourselves down to the floor of the meeting room before we arrive at the window and then connect the bomb to the detonator. For once in this game, everything goes off without a hitch and we start making our way back up when... Because the bomb's gone off early, we head back down to see if it worked, but see Clementi had a well-timed toilet break that saved him from the blast. He runs away from us and starts shooting. We give chase through the wreckage and put these guys out of their misery, and after a long shootout, we get back to the underground car park where we see Clementi escaping in a car. Joe finds that Marty has been killed and takes it pretty hard, so we get in our vehicle and give chase. As we're chasing Clementi's car, we're very fortunate this random taxi driver is on our side and helps us catch up. Once we're there, Joe approaches Clementi's car and follows Columbus's rules to surviving the zombie apocalypse and double taps him. We head off and arrive back at Joe's where Vito and Joe share a beer. Joe's taking Marty's death pretty hard, which lets us see a different side of the character that we haven't seen throughout this game. We leave Joe's apartment and on the way home we pimp our ride, turning it turbo. We test out the new engine and immediately regret that, so we reload, try again, and then travel home at a safe speed before going to bed. In a shock surprise, this doesn't start a new chapter and we're woken up by the phone ringing. We answer it and speak to a guy named Leon, who's a bartender at the Lone Star. He asks us to pick up Joe, who is intoxicated and threatening patrons. We get dressed and head out to our car to pick up Joe. We arrive at the Lone Star bar, and as we're talking to a drunk Joe, he accidentally shoots Leon the bartender. We drag Leon's body to the boot of the car, and because Joe's a liability at this point, we drive him to his house and drop him off. After that, we head to Mike Brewski's wreckage yard and crush the vehicle with Leon in it, which earns us some money. Because we've now crushed our only vehicle, we have to steal another one and drive home. Now if you're actually watching and you're wondering how the car changed colours there, don't want you to mention it because it's actually a sore spot and I had to reload a save and battle the awful checkpoint system in this game. After breaking the fourth wall, we arrive back at home and head to bed for a peaceful night's sleep. We tick over to the 27th of July and into chapter 11. Rather than a phone call, this time we're woken up by someone ringing at our doorbell. We get dressed and walk outside to greet Henry, who's at the door. He invites us into the car to have a bit of a chat with us. We have this entire conversation where Henry tells us he knows that we're the ones who took out Clementi because our moustache disguises weren't very good and that he wants us to vouch for him so he can join up with Falcone. Now when I was playing through this mission, I thought I had to remain stationary in the car during this conversation, so by the time I realised we were supposed to be driving to the Maltese Falcon, we've already run out of everything to talk about. Because of this, Henry and Vito have a nice silent awkward car drive all the way there. After the painfully quiet drive, we arrive at the Maltese Falcon and we head in. We talk to Eddie, who throws us a wad of cash. As we're talking to him, we try to convince him to give Henry a shot to join the Falcones. Henry comes over and Eddie tells us that he knows the Vincis are soon going to try take out Falcone, so he tasks Henry with taking out our old friend Leo Galante. Eddie asks us if we'd like to go with Henry to complete the task, but after some strong deliberation, Vito declines the offer to go murder his friend. As soon as the conversation ends, we finish up and head home. Oh wait, no we don't. The game wants us to go warn Leo. We're now racing against the clock, so we steal this car and start speeding to Leo's house. Because there's no time to lose, rather than wait for his gate to open, we completely destroy it and arrive on time. We rush into Leo's house, but Leo isn't really reading the urgency of the situation. We talk to Leo and tell him there's a hit on him. Leo tells us that Falcone wants to kill the other family's heads so we can monopolise the drug business, and by the time we convince Leo to leave, Henry arrives and we're tasked to sneak out of the house unnoticed. This stealth section lasts for all of about 5 seconds before Henry finds us. Henry leads us into the kitchen and we plead with him to try and save Leo. Henry declines but gives us the opportunity to leave so we don't have to watch. Vito decides to leave the room and light a dark when we hear a gunshot. Henry leaves the kitchen, but a short time later we find out that he must have had a change of heart because Leo's alive. Henry leaves the house and we speak to Leo, who agrees to skip town. We jump in a car together and break another one of Leo's gates before driving him to the train station. Leo gets out of the car and walks towards the entrance, looking like a demented old man in his pajamas. After a job well done, we drive back home, but we see Francesca crying on our doorstep. She tells us her husband Eric drinks a lot and becomes physical with her. We tell Francesca we'll go talk to him, but we promise not to hurt him. After doing some searching, we track down this depressing looking party in a nearby apartment and find that Eric's cheating on Francesca in the kitchen. We keep our promise to Francesca and talk some sense into it.
Be busy taking care of your wife, asshole.
With this glass bottle. We threaten Eric and solve that problem, so we leave and steal a car to get back home. We arrive back home to the sound of our phone ringing. It's Francesca, who tells us that Eric's promised not to be physical anymore, but because we beat the shit out of him, she wants nothing to do with us. We head to bed to sleep it off, but we're awoken by a bunch of cars pulling up to the front of our house. A group of Irishmen get out of the car and set our house on fire with Molotov, and with that we lose all of our money. We escape out our bathroom window and run away from them in our underwear. We escape to Joe's apartment and tell him what happened. He agrees to help us get revenge, and because he's such a good friend, he even offers us the shirt off his back, literally. Joe makes a few phone calls, and now that we're wearing his oversized shirt, we head out to his car. Joe tells us that we're heading to the Hill of Tara to get back at the Irish gang. He says they have a new boss who used to be Brian O'Neill's cousin. We arrive at the Hill of Tara and Vito makes an entrance with a blatant lie.
I chased him, but I lost him. The coward ran away.
You were the one who ran away.
No, Vito, I've got footage of you running away. This lie causes us to get into a shootout as we shoot our way through the building. By the time we shoot our way outside, we see some Irishmen getting away in a vehicle. We jump in a car and give chase to them when Joe immediately contradicts himself.
Come on, Vito, faster. We're gonna lose him. What do you got, an aversion to red lights?
You are literally hanging out of the window firing a gun right now. We finally catch up to our target and make sure we finish the job, multiple times for burning our house down, before heading back to Joe's apartment. On the way there, Joe gives us the keys to Marty's apartment as a new place to stay. We drop Joe off and head to our new apartment in Oyster Bay. Once we get there, we head inside and we see it's a bit of a dump, so we go to bed. We're now up to chapter 12 and it's September 22nd, 1951, when we're woken up again by the phone ringing. Vito answers it and it's Henry, who tells us he's setting up something big. He tells us to meet him at Lincoln Park, and and we agree because in the end it doesn't even matter. We make our way to the park, and when we arrive, Joe, Henry and Vito have a conversation on this park bench. Henry tells us that the big job is to transport heroin to dealers around town. There's a bit of behind the scenes drug happenings going on between all the three mafia families, but all we need to know right now is that both Falcone and Vinci want control of the drug trade. Our job is to transport dope for a Chinese gang called the Tongs for a lot of money, but first we have to visit a loan shark named Bruno to give us $35,000 so we can show the Tongs we mean business. We head to Bruno's and Henry has a pretty intense negotiation with him, but Bruno agrees to loan us the cash under the assurance we pay him back just under double by Friday. Now that we have the money, Vito, Henry and Joe need to drive to Sea Gift Warehouse to meet the Tongs. Once we arrive at the warehouse, we're given a tour by Michael Myers, who leads us to a room and we're introduced to Mr. Wong. Our meeting with Mr. Wong goes off without a hitch and he accepts our bag of cash in return for a boatload of drugs. We take the drugs and then Mr. Wong leaves Henry hanging, so we walk out when we're cut off by some police officers. Henry suggests to us that they're not cops, so Joe shoots one of them and we get into another shootout. We eventually shoot our way through the warehouse and jump in a car to escape. Now that we're in the clear, we head to a group called the Hunters to sell our merchandise. Once we arrive, Joe takes a quick puff before we head inside. The meeting is a success and the game cuts to another montage of Vito, Joe and Henry peddling drugs and making money. Most of the deals go pretty well, but we have to shoot a guy and bribe some cops along the way. But I'd say overall it's a success. The guys are all feeling good, so they ignore the advances of these women and they walk towards the camera in a shot that I'm sure would have looked a lot cooler if this game had better graphics. The end of this montage takes us into chapter 13, which is set in September 24th, 1951, where we start in Joe's apartment after a night of partying. Now remember at the start when I said don't get too attached to Henry? This chapter's why. I remember playing this game when I was younger and this is the only chapter that is burned into my memory. The phone starts ringing and Vito decides to answer it. It's Henry again and he asks us to meet us at Lincoln Park as Falcone knows about the drug deal and wants his cut of the money. We leave the apartment with Joe and get into our car and make our way to the park. When Vito and Joe arrive, they're walking into the park when they hear Henry screaming in agony. Vito and Joe run towards him where they see Henry getting graphically attacked by Mr. Wong's men with a bunch of meat cleavers. We get into a shootout to stop them and then we go to check on Henry. The camera turns to a POV shot from Henry's perspective as he goes into the light. After Henry dies, Mr. Wong drives past us and we decide to follow him. Because at this point Vito's blinded by rage, he doesn't realise we have to follow Wong from a distance, so he immediately rams his car, which makes us fail the quest. We try again and now that we're in a much calmer state, we follow Wong successfully to this building. At this point in the game it gives us the option to go get more firepower or to enter the building straight away. We decide to go in straight away. We pay our membership fee to the bouncers at the door and then we get into another large shootout. We make our way through this very long shootout which goes through multiple rooms and then find this elevator which we didn't realise was an elevator straight away, so decide to shoot the wall. Once I finally figure out what I'm doing, we catch the elevator and then we go find Mr. Wong. After threatening him, Mr. Wong tells us that Henry was a government informer. We ask Wong for any more information but he doesn't tell us because he knows if he tells us we're going to kill him afterwards, but then Joe kills him anyway. We make our escape out of the building and we're immediately surrounded and shot at by police. We eventually find a way to escape and go to a nearby shop to buy a new suit to lose the cops. We drive back to Joe's and we have a cigarette with each other. We discuss if Henry was a rat and if Falcone finds out, then we're really going to be in trouble. As there's so many things piling up, we decide to focus on just paying back Bruno the loan shark and then sort the rest out later. This takes us through to chapter 14 set on September 25th, and my god this chapter pissed me off so much, and it highlights the issues with the checkpoint system in this game. But I don't want to touch on that too much now, but if you'd like, subscribe to the channel to see our upcoming Mafia II best or worst game ever review. Now after plugging the channel, Vito wakes up and is standing in his bed. Yes, that's right, he's in it, not on it. The phone's ringing again, so we answer it and it's Joe, who tells us he has a job for Eddie that has a big payout. We head outside and Joe happens to be waiting for us downstairs, which begs the question why he didn't just come up and knock on the door. He's standing next to a fancy new car, which he tells us Eddie gave to him for this job specifically. We drive over to Greenfield, where on the way Joe tells us we have to whack a guy as a favour to a family from another city, and that needs to be done today because there's a federal informant. We head to Oak Street Greenfield, where we see our target. We pull up and jump out the car where we execute this guy in the middle of the street. Now, if you've never played Mafia 1, this scene means absolutely nothing to you. But if you did, you know their target was Tommy Angelo, the protagonist from the first game. If you want the too long didn't play on that, here it is. Cabbie driver, joined the Mafia, turned into a federal informant.
Mr. Salieri sends his regards.
After murdering Tommy in cold blood, all the feds who were poorly protecting him give chase to us. We finally escape them, and Joe gives us our cut of the payment. And due to a weird bug, Joe wouldn't stop shooting people at this point, so I need to skip over that bit because this chapter's already long enough as it is. Once Joe finally stopped his murder spree, we drop him off to Kingston. We split up and we're now tasked with earning half of our money back to pay Bruno. We decide to go back to where it all began and we head to Derek's on the port. Of course this bloke's eating when we arrive as we begin to talk to him. While speaking with Derek, Steve comes in and tells us that the dock workers are on strike after Derek fired one. Derek tells us if we help him intimidate them, he'll pay us $1,000. We walk out of the dock following behind Derek. When we arrive, Derek starts trying to intimidate this old bloke to get back to work. This younger guy starts yelling at us and escalates the scene, so things begin to get really tense. Just when we think it's all done and dusted, Derek drops our name and the dock workers recognize it. In a twist that I guess no one was really expecting or asking for, but is welcome nonetheless, the dock workers explain to Vito that Derek had Steve kill Vito's dad. Vito turns his allegiance against Derek, and if there was ever any doubt as who to believe, Steve says this.
We've known each other for a long time, Vito. Think of all the
You
things.
all wet, Steve. You dive in and try to save him?
Because you wouldn't stay underwater. Come on, shut!
Removing all doubt. Now for some reason Derek and co retreat as Vito holds a shotgun at them, which to me just doesn't make sense given we get into a shootout immediately after this. But thanks to that stupid move, it gives us time to recruit the dock workers so they can rally behind us. We storm the warehouse in a mission which I really don't want to give the time of day, as we have a shootout on the dock which leads to a warehouse where Derek just stands at the back and lobs molotovs at us as we're swarmed by tons of enemies. And I don't know if I'm just bad at the game or not, but my god I died so many times on this mission, and every time you do it, it shoots you back to the start of the shootout and it's a bunch of bullshit, and now I'm leaving to go calm down. After pretending to try not lose our cool, we finally kill Derek and Steve and search Derek's office where we find $22,000 in his safe. And because finally finishing that shootout feels so good, I'm going to add one to our power counter too. Sue me. It's my video, I do what I want. After robbing Derek, we leave his office, but unfortunately we're still $2,000 short. I'm going to save you all the time of my frustration here, but basically I tried to make this up by robbing multiple gun stores, and I don't know why, but one of the owners just kept killing me with his shotgun, so I'm going to skip all the way to the end of that where I get his money. Because all that robbing made us wanted, we can either head to a nearby clothes store and buy the ugliest outfit we could find for $25, and after that, we immediately take the money back and then some. We run out of the store looking like a middle-aged dad rushing to a barbecue. Now we finally have enough money, so we take our ugly shirt and drive to Joe's apartment. We knock on his door but we don't get an answer, and 6 hours later we still haven't heard from him. We head to the Maltese Falcon and go see Eddie to see if he has any information. He reminds us of Henry's death and tells us that the Chinese gang are seeking retribution for Mr. Wong's death and they're currently going after the Vinci family. Other than that, he gives us no other useful information, so we leave and decide to go to Giuseppe's to see if he knows anything. Vito thinks his plan is so good, he repeats it twice for us.
Let's try Giuseppe next. He keeps his ear to the ground. Let's try Giuseppe next. He keeps his ear to the ground.
We jump in our car and head to Giuseppe's. Once we arrive, we ask him if he's seen Joe. He tells us he has, but while he was there, he was picked up by a couple of Vinci's men. He tells us they might have gone to the Mona Lisa bar. We speed there as quick as we can and then we enter the bar. Now for no other reason than wearing this ugly shirt, we're greeted with guns in our face. Because we defend the shirt so much, Vinci's sidemen pistol whip us and knock us out. When we wake up, we see we're tied up next to Joe, who's been beaten and tortured. Vinci approaches us and asks us why the Chinese people are after him. We plead ignorance and lie to him, which earns us a punch to the face. We get knocked out, and by the time we come to, the guards have given us enough space to try wiggle to freedom. By the time they figure out we're escaping, Joe's ready to dish out some revenge. Now that we've escaped, we have to sneak out of this building, and with all things stealth in this game, I immediately get caught and it turns into another large shootout. After multiple rooms of shootouts with multiple guns and multiple enemies, we finally earn our escape. Joe tells us we need to take him to El Greco as he's beat up pretty bad. After listening to Vito and Joe talk over each other for the whole drive,
Chest! Yeah.
Get easy. El Greco's gonna fix you.
Sure.
Sit back. The more you whine about it, the worse it's gonna be.
So listen, Vito.
The more you whine about it, the worse it's gonna be.
Thanks.
Hey, we're in
Coming
this
after
together,
me.
right? Just
That
like
was getting
always.
yourself killed.
we arrive at El Greco's and drop Joe off. El Greco takes him in and then Joe turns around and gives us some money to pay off Bruno. We head straight to Bruno in hopes this chapter's over soon. We go in and give Bruno the money, who's surprised we're able to pay it back. Right before we leave, he asks our name and we tell him. And that's where we get the reveal that he was the loan shark who loaned our dad money at the start of the game. Remember when I told you to note that down? We speak to Francesca, who tells us our family owes the loan shark $2,000 due to a debt created by her father. Now note this, it comes up later. See, I told you. Thank God that reveal ends the chapter and takes us to chapter 15th on September 26th. We're back at the start now, where Vito's sitting in the dark like a vampire again, but this time it's a little bit more well lit as he narrates to us.
I dreamed of money, cars, women, respect, freedom. I guess I ended up getting all that, more or less.
Of course you did, Vito. Didn't you see our counter? Vito then turns off the light and goes to bed. But one last time in this game, Vito gets woken up by the phone ringing. He answers it and it's Eddie who has another job for us. Vito must realise he's on a Too Long Didn't Play episode and tries making a self-aware joke.
Let me guess. You need me to come by right away, and I should bring a gun.
Without hindsight like me, Vito gets it wrong. What Vito actually needs to do is go see Falcone at the observatory and not bring a gun. I wonder why that is. We get dressed in our trademark jacket and not that filthy green shirt we bought and begin to walk to the observatory. On the way there, we're stopped by a guy in the street who asks us to get in his car. We see that Leo has returned and is not in a joking mood. We get in the car and sit next to this guy who's named Mr. Chu, who surprisingly doesn't look like Michael Myers. Now I know this is supposed to be a serious scene where Leo scolds us for causing chaos between the families, the Tongs, and the feds. I just really struggle to take it seriously with his eye tracking always looking to the left. Look at that, it just looks ridiculous. Anyway, our job is to go to the observatory and kill Falcone, and Leo promises us as a favour that if we do it, we won't be killed. Thanks, Leo. After a long drive, we arrive at the observatory and get stopped by Falcone's men. They ask us to hand over our gun, but instead we just give them some bullets. This is where Vito, the one-man army, is sick and tired of all the shootouts at this point, so he turns into the Terminator and just Tommy guns his way through dozens of enemies. We finally shoot enough people and make it to the whatever this thing's called, planetarium maybe. We arrive at the planetarium where Falcone is waiting for us. Falcone chews us out for a little bit before he reveals that it's turned Joe, who's now pointing a gun at our head. Falcone directs Joe to kill us, but Vito and Joe pull a sly one on him and turn the tables.
Vito. Let's shoot this cocksucker.
Remember what we talked
On
about,
tree.
Joe? You're gonna throw all that away? Do it!
2.
Now!
We have one final shootout in this game, which eventually ends in the demise of Falcone. Vito now gets a chance to monologue a bit himself while shooting Falcone in the back before he finally puts him out of his misery. After that's finished, we talk to Joe and hear what Falcone offered him to turn on Vito.
Yeah, I figured out that much. What kind of offer?
He wanted me to whack you. Said he'd make me a capo. Give me my own crew. You know, pretty much everything I ever wanted.
Yeah? So why the hell didn't you do it?
Remember that $5 you owe me?
And now that right there would be a perfect ending for the two of them. Unfortunately, because this is a Mafia game, we go to leave into the sunset, but Leo and his men are waiting for us. Leo says they're going to go celebrate at a brothel and asks Vito to come with him. Joe goes into his own car and a suspicious soundtrack swell starts playing. On the way to the cat house, Vito sees Joe's car turn off and Leo delivers a gut punch of a last line to everyone playing.
Sorry, kid. Joe wasn't part of our deal.
Now this twist is so big it causes physics to stop as the rain pauses mid-air as we watch one last shot of Empire Bay, which takes us to the end of Mafia 2. Now I hope you'll enjoy this episode of Too Long Didn't Play and our not so serious recap of Mafia 2. While it might not have been the happiest ending of all time, there were definitely some great moments for our protagonist as we look at our final scorecard for the first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the woman counter, and that's a lot of moolah. If you've made it this far, thank you all so much for watching another episode of Too Long Didn't Play. Please let me know in the comments what you thought, as I'm always looking for ways to improve. Make sure to subscribe as we launch our new review series, Best or Worst Game Ever, where we don't fence it and we look to review Spider-Man 2 first up. If that doesn't take your fancy, our next Too Long Didn't Play will be for my favourite game of all time, which is Arcane's Prey, so make sure to subscribe for that. Until then though, this has been Too Long Didn't Play, I've been Nodvaro, and you've been great.